So let's take a look at a few examples, trying to find the correct or why these sentences are a mistake. So this first one, make sure that you don't begin a sentence with a numeral. So obviously these two sentences begin a sentence with a numeral, but I want to say I ran into a journal the other day where they specifically said that numerals up to 4 or more numerals long, like in the thousands or more, don't have to be spelled out, including at the beginning of a sentence. So this particular journal, I don't remember which journal it was, but they specifically said that you don't have to change your sentence to not begin a sentence with a numeral as long as it's long enough, right? So again, always pay attention to the specific little rules that a journal might have. But generally, and a basic rule that you would want to follow is don't begin a sentence with a numeral. So in this case, you can fix this sentence. Note that 150 survey respondents were randomly chosen for follow-up interviews. You can just, add that to the beginning of the sentence so you're not beginning with 150. Here's 60% of enrolled subjects. It's easy to spell that out, right? 60%. That's an easy way to fix it. But if you have a number like, 1,553, it's a bit difficult to spell that out. And, you have to play that by ear, make sure you're following journal, but, it's difficult to spell those kind of words out. So in this study, 60%, right? So you change up the wording of the sentence. So another common mistake that I see is not inserting a space between a numeral and its corresponding unit of measurement. So just imagine essentially that these are spelled out. Obviously, we would use kg. Everybody know what that means instead of spelling out kilogram. But make sure that you imagine that it's actually the word. So you want to put a space between the numeral and the unit of measurement. So obviously in this case, you're putting a space between 45.55 and 48.5. In the second one, the plus and minus, right? We have to imagine that it's actually spelled out, 60 plus or minus 5 years. So make sure that you're putting a space between those two numerals. Again, it's an easy mistake to have, and I'm probably sure I made it myself. It just kind of makes sense for some reason to not put a space between them, but that is what you should do. Imagine as if everything is spelled out in words, and of course you'd always put spaces between words. So again, some more, even something like megahertz, right? 600 megahertz, 111 megabytes, and again, the second one, gram. So make sure that you're putting a space between the numeral and the unit of measurement, right? Megahertz and megabytes are both units of measurements, as is gram, of course. Make sure that you're using the past tense, or that you don't use the past tense for in-text references to figures or tables, right? That's an easy mistake. I've made it myself, right? But you should always use the present tense when you're talking about the figures and tables in your work. So you're changing it. It's not were summarized, it's are summarized, right? And the second one shows the results. So you're always talking present tense for tables and figures in your paper. Now, if it's in somebody else's paper, then of course you will use the past tense. Oftentimes when the subject and the verb are not next to each other, it's very easy to confuse the subject verb agreement. So make sure that you're always using a singular verb with a singular subject, etc., etc. So in this one, the recent innovations in mapping technologies GPS in particular, has revolutionized demographics. So particular, it's not the word you want to use. So actually the subject in this is innovations. So the correct way to read this is recent innovations in mapping technologies, GPS in particular, have revolutionized demographics. So in the second one, the ratio of corporate coffee shops to independent shops were defined as the indie index. So in this one, it's easy to confuse shops with the subject, but it's not the subject. The actual subject of the sentence is ratio. So the ratio was defined, right? The ratio of corporate coffee shops to independent coffee shops was defined as the indie index. And again, this is, as a native speaker, it sounds wrong because it's next to shops. So it sounds correctly to say shops were, but that's not correct because it's not the subject of the sentence. The subject is ratio. So in those kind of instances, you have to look back and remember what exactly is the subject of the sentence and make sure that you have subject and verb agreement. So in this one, inserting a hyphen in compound adjective when the first verb is I. So this is often, I see, like fully automated or surgically separated. You don't have to have a hyphen when sometimes you would actually have the hyphen in there. So obviously, to fix that, you take out the hyphen in both of these cases. Another mistake that I see quite often, inserting a comma before but also in a sentence containing the correlative conjunction not only but also. So in this instance, we observed that poor test performance was due to not only lack of parental engagement, but also poverty. So you're not going to put a comma between engagement and but. So you fix that, you take out that comma. Pre-marriage couples counseling is valuable not only in reducing the chances of eventual divorce, but also in improving lifetime income levels of the couples. So when you're reading it, when you're looking at it, it actually makes sense to put a break there, but you're not supposed to put a comma there, right? General rule, don't put a comma before the but also, right? Also be aware, this is kind of a style mistake more so than a grammatical mistake. Don't use same or similar words in quick succession in two consecutive sentences. So here in this first sentence, parents' income level are shown in table 1. Table 2 shows the income level of their female children. So it's just kind of a style mistake. It's not good to put those kind of similar things in quick succession in the consecutive sentences. So a good way to fix this, tables 1 and 2 show parental earnings and income level of all female subjects respectively, right? The second one is just kind of a redundancy thing, right? You're mentioning figure 5 twice. You can better say that by only mentioning figure 5 once. So here, the correct way, last year alone, the number of health food stores have doubled, putting figure 5 in there. In the insert, in the inset, the inverse trend in fast food restaurants is observed. So you're pointing to that figure just once. You don't have to point to the figure twice in that kind of quick succession. Now, if you had, last year alone, the number of health food stores is doubled, as shown in figure 5, and then you have a few sentences later, and then you say, maybe the next paragraph, in addition, fast food restaurants nationwide have been closing stores at double the rate from previous years, as shown in the inset of figure 5. So that's okay, as long as there's some separation between the two sentences. But right next to each other, you don't have to point to figure 5 like that. You should definitely, paraphrase yourself essentially, as is the corrected mistake.